Welcome to the Metaphysics Hour. I'm your host, Rory Colgan. In episode 14, what you're listening to and watching right now, we are going to talk about another universal law. Now remember, in the School of Metaphysics, where I learned these universal principles, there are 13 primary forces that operate simultaneously, not independent, but interdependent. They make up the whole of the universe. Now, just this particular universe, as far as I know. I'm not sure about any of the universes out there in the multiverse, if that is a real thing. But inside this universe, where you and I are listening and watching YouTube together, we have these 13 friends, these 13 allies to help us achieve the most in our lives. And not necessarily just in quantity, but of course, quality. And finding the perfect balance between those two is not only a science, it is an art. So, if you have subscribed to this channel already and you've devoured these little tidbits of information, you'll know that we're going to be talking about the third universal law that we have covered thus far. Now, I spent 8 years inside a mystery school or a not-for-profit school, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. And in those 8 years, I spent a lot of time and energy trying to perfect my understanding of what makes the universe operate, or how the universe operates and what forces cause the universe to operate the way that it does. And selfishly, I was thinking, well, how can I use what I've learned to make my life better? Health, healing, mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual was very important to me at that time when I first started my study. Now I feel like I have learned how to heal myself. I healed myself. I wrote a book about it called Healing Bipolar, 15 Qualities for a Healthy Life. You can find it at my website, innerhealthtoday.com. And in that, I felt a sense of completion, but not necessarily with the principles that I was studying. Rather, I understood that these principles were something that you continually refine, that you do not ever really reach a point of ultimate completion. Or if you do, it would be termed enlightenment or something else similar in characteristic, where it's finally out of the rat race of birth and rebirth type of thing, or out of the rat race of pain and suffering and pleasure and joy type of thing, out of the duality. So in any case, these 13 principles are consistently present at the same time. Now, the left side of our head, it doesn't grasp the wholeness of 13 different distinct principles cooperating it so seamlessly that they make up a whole. So the left brain needs to go through A to B to C to D to E to F, G, H, I, J, K, on and on and on. In any case, we need the left brain mentality along with the right brain mentality, which is, I get it. I grasp it. I understand it. It's spatial. It's not something you put on paper. It's an awareness. And if you put both of those things together, you're going to use your brain effectively. Now, the brain is just one part of this advanced Earth spacesuit that we are using, and it's an important part. But there's also the heart, and beyond the physical organ of the heart, even though the physical organ itself is pretty fantastic and it has at least 40 million neurons, according to the HeartMath Solution and the Heart Institute, I think is what it's called. It's been a while since I've read that book. But in any case, there are brain neurons in the heart, and supposedly the heart tells the brain what to do. Now, in either case, let's get out of the physics for a moment and get into the metaphysics. Hence, it's the Metaphysical Hour. Your metaphysical mind and your metaphysical heart are very important, and they work together. You don't really need to evaluate one as being better than the other. You need to have both of them working together. So, in considering these principles that I've already shared a few of, I want to remind you that you have to put these principles into practice. Just to hear some guy on an internet channel or internet app talking to you about these principles, it kind of kills the ambiance and the beauty of such a thing, because You used to have to like walk through a wall of fire to be initiated in a school where they would tell you these simple truths. And at that point, your mind was going to be so prepared for it that it would be a profound initiation. All you had to do was click a button. And you probably even know me, and that's why you clicked on my feed. But I don't want you to just think that what you're consuming is necessarily of the same caliber of what you're used to consuming. I mean, unless you spend all of your time working on holy works and how the universe operates on its primary functions, then this should be a little bit different. This should be insightful for you. And again, I want to remind you that this is how it is, or this is how the universe works, but don't take my word for it. I don't care necessarily if you believe me or trust me or follow this. I'm going to ask you to so that you can have your own experience and come up with your own results. Anybody that I've experienced following through on some of the suggestions that I will tell you about in the upcoming minutes, they achieved the same results or similar results that I've achieved, and I know other people have achieved because I didn't come up with these principles or the way to categorize them. That was done, 100,000 people before me. So it's Jacob's ladder, one hand down, one hand up. It doesn't matter which hand's up, which hand's down. The important thing is that there are principles that help us live a happy, healthy, wonderful life. So we've talked about 3 of them thus far: divine birthright, proper perspective, and now abundance. The universal law of abundance. I know, I'm so sorry that it took almost 7 minutes to get to this universal law, but that's the nature of me sometimes. The universal law of abundance is best described, in my words, as more than you need. Anything and everything, more than you need. The universe is abundant. Now, the reason that's so important is because if you look at the world in the 21st century, we don't practice that. There is scarcity thinking, not abundance thinking. Hence, we fight sometimes with our words and sometimes with our guns and other toys that we call defense systems about the scarce resources of land, minerals, water, and all the other little it-bits and titbits that we fight over. Think about it. You and I grow up in a system that is inherently flawed from how the universe actually operates. I don't know if you feel that, but you should feel a profound sense of relief that, yes, there are many problems in the world, and part of those problems result from an inaccurate fundamental belief system. We believe in scarcity, we will come to poverty and war. If we believe in abundance, we will come to abundance and prosperity. For all, not just 1, not just 3, not just 10, not just 1%, 100%. That makes me happy because I know that somewhere, somehow in this universe that there is some species that has worked this out, and somehow that species maybe as diverse as our own species in terms of where we originate from. They have evolved past the primitive stage of Homo sapiens, the primitive part of thinking, the primitive part that still uses that reptilian complex to survive and be hierarchical. And if they've done it, I postulate we can do it. Now, will we? I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't know if my little channel and your little work and my little work combined would be enough. There are a lot of people on this planet, and so we all need to do our part. We all need to invest heavily in the idea that the universe is abundant. And so any models, political, economic, social, that deal with scarcity need to be reevaluated within the light of abundance. So That's a big picture. That's the macro. What's the micro? What can you and I do right now besides, I don't know. I don't know. The macro to me still is kind of like, how do you herd billions of cats into a single room? You don't. Cats are horrible at being herded. And, heck, even if you're doing cattle, to move billions or at least 100, 300 million plus into one direction, very hard. So there are other principles at work that we could talk about at length, and we will in upcoming episodes, that will help you understand the macro and relax a little bit more and do your part, but not be attached to, the whole big picture changing on a dime. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. In any case, the micro, your life. First place that I think abundance is essential to recognize is that you have enough air. You have enough to breathe. And so if you're not breathing effectively, then guess what? You're not harmonized with this universal law in a very fundamental way. Therefore, your life, your relationships, the amount of money that you have, the give and flow, the give and take, the give and receive of energy, you are stifling yourself from the get-go. Talk about starting off on the wrong foot. Not good. So, breathe in, breathe out. Taking a deep breath as deep as you can. Try to get all the air. And your lungs just aren't big enough to get all the air. I mean, unless you're like on the International Space Station, pretty sure you're not going to run out of air. And that still makes sense given the other universals and all that good stuff. But here on planet Earth, and perhaps even south of the Himalaya mountain peaks, you're going to have enough air, even if you're at a higher altitude. If you're underwater, don't stay under there too long. The point is, most of our lives are not spent in the extremes of space, on top of a mountain, or under an ocean, or underwater, fully submerged. We tend to at least sleep, unless you're an astronaut, above water and below mountaintops. Again, unless you're like an adventure junkie. So first off, breathe. The more you breathe in and out, the more in sync you will be with the universal law of abundance. And watch how it transforms into some of the more esoteric forms of abundance. Because not only do you have enough energy, you have enough time. Another misconception of the scarcity model. And trust me, and you already know it, so you don't have to trust me, you just have to look at the facts. Living in a society that is so primitive, such as ours, is very much akin to you and I living about 1300 AD, 1400, 1500 AD, here in America, where people of different skin color happen to not be people. If you have a vagina, you happen to not be a person. Sounds pretty primitive, right? Well, what you and I take for granted that we see in quote-unquote mainstream is just as primitive. And it's a little bit harder because the slavery nowadays deals with slavery of the mind more so than slavery of the skin tone. So keep that in mind, that as you breathe, you will start to wake up and you'll start to realize that, hey, we're not so evolved as we pretend to be. And then you might even see that the causes of the conflict stem from a difficulty in being able to breathe and accept that the universe has plenty to go around. And there's enough for you, your friends, your family. And it's not just going to simply be handed to you. You're going to have to breathe. You are going to have to cause yourself to breathe differently so that you can harmonize with the abundance that is all around you. Wow. I hope that was good for you. It was good for me. Anyways, Rory Colgan signing off here. Go to innerhealthtoday.com, click on financial support, and support our mission. And we'll keep cranking these out. You all be blessed. Love you. Bye.